So at this point, it's safe to say I'm not a fan of Young Miami, and I probably never will be. My issue isn't personal. I do not know her, but my issue has always been with the type of message she consistently puts into the culture. If you've been on social media lately, you've probably heard her latest single, Spend That. The record is quickly becoming one of the biggest songs of the summer, but it's also generating an enormous amount of controversy. Some people hear nothing more than a catchy beat. Others hear a song that celebrates scamming, fraud, and getting money by any means necessary. Supporters dismiss the criticism by saying it's just entertainment and no different from themes hip hop has explored for decades. Critics also argue that music like this normalizes behavior that shouldn't be celebrated at all. For those unfamiliar with Young Miami, she first rose to fame as one half of the rap duo City Girls alongside JT. Their brand was built around luxury, expensive gifts, and encouraging women to see financial gain from men. Depending on who you ask, that was either female empowerment or transactional dating packaged as entertainment. Regardless of where you stand, there's no denying that it became the identity of the City Girls. Now, with Spend That, many listeners believe Young Miami has taken the message a step further. The song has reignited an old debate. Does popular music merely reflect what's happening in the society, or does it actively influence the way people think and behave? Personally, I think that's the wrong question. The better question is what kind of values are we rewarding? When a song that appears to celebrate illegal ways of making money becomes one of the biggest records of the summer, it's reasonable to ask why that message resonates with so many people. Adults are ultimately responsible for their own actions, and artists aren't responsible for every decision their listeners make. But let's not pretend music exists in a vacuum. Music shapes conversations, it shapes fashion, it shapes language, it shapes aspirations. That's precisely why certain songs become cultural moments instead of simply disappearing after a few weeks. This isn't about young Miami anymore, it's about the culture. And judging by the reaction, plenty of people agree that this conversation is worth having. The song has become such a cultural flashpoint that artists and celebrities have started weighing in. Two of the biggest voices are India.Arie and Trick Daddy. And honestly, just hearing these two names, you can probably guess which side each of them landed on. India.Arie approached the issue from a cultural perspective. Her concern wasn't simply that she disliked the song. Her point was much more broader. She argued that everything we consume, what we listen to, what we watch, even what we eat, has some of level of influence on us. Because of that, she believes we should be intentional about the messages we embrace and celebrate. She later clarified that she wasn't calling for censorship or a boycott in general. She was asking what it says about society when a song like Spend That becomes one of the biggest records in the country. Then there's Trick Daddy, who came from the complete opposite direction. According to him, much of the criticism comes from jealousy. In his view, people are hating on a young woman who's successful, making money, and doing something positive with her life. Now, that's where I personally have to disagree. I have absolutely no problem acknowledging Young Miami's success. I mean, she's built a brand for herself and she's gained millions of followers. She's managed to market herself very well and stay relevant in this industry, even though I didn't give her much of a dog's chance. But commercial success and positive influence are not the same thing. Those are two completely different conversations. A song can dominate the charts without promoting positive values. A movie can break box office records while glorifying violence. A television show can become the most watched program on television without being morally uplifting. Popularity has never been the same thing as positivity. So when Trick Daddy says people are criticizing Young Miami because she's doing something positive, I think he's conflating success with influence. Those are not interchangeable. Now, to be fair, I'm also not surprised that Trick Daddy sees it this way. Throughout much of his career, his music reflected street life and the realities of his environment. He's just a product of his environment. Many of his biggest records weren't intended to be inspirational anthems. Given his background and artistic philosophy, it makes sense that he would prioritize artistic freedom over whether every song carries an uplifting message. But that's exactly what makes this debate interesting. How do we define positive? Is a song positive simply because it gets people dancing? Is it positive because it generates millions of streams? Or is it positive because it creates wealth for the artist? Or should we also consider the ideas it normalizes and celebrates? Depending on how you answer those questions, you'll probably find yourself agreeing with either India.Arie or Trick Daddy. For me, this conversation goes beyond one song. There was a time when drug dealers were viewed as symbols of success in many communities. Many young men wanted to be like them. Their lifestyles influenced fashion, cars, jewelry, language, and hip hop itself. Rappers often portray themselves as drug dealers, while real drug dealers embraced the image that hip hop helped popularize. Whether the music reflected the streets or the streets reflected the music, the two became deeply intertwined. Then came the federal crackdown on crack cocaine during the Reagan era. Law enforcement aggressively targeted drug trafficking organizations, and many kingpins received decades long prison sentences, including life imprisonment. Whether those sentences were fair is a debate for another day, but one thing is undeniable. The severe consequences made that lifestyle far less attractive to many people who once viewed it as a shortcut to wealth. Over time, another illegal path has emerged. Where the rise of the internet, online fraud, and scamming has become, in the minds of some, the new get rich quick opportunity. Instead of selling drugs on street corners, people could sit behind computer screens and steal from victims thousands of miles away. Law enforcement has become increasingly sophisticated at investigating these crimes, but the perception among many young people is that scamming offers high rewards with low risk. That's exactly why songs that appear to glamorize scamming concern me. When these songs become chart topping hits and children are singing the lyrics without understanding what they are actually saying, we should at least pause and ask what messages they are absorbing. We often underestimate the power of repetition. Psychologists have studied how repeated exposure to ideas influence attitudes and perceptions. Repetition doesn't automatically determine someone's behavior, but it can shape what people begin to view as normal, acceptable, or even desirable. For a child with strong parental guidance and positive role models, those messages may simply remain entertainment. But for someone who lacks that foundation, repeated exposure can reinforce unhealthy aspirations. Now, let me be clear because I know someone who's already typing in the comments. I'm not saying music alone turns people into criminals. Human behavior is far more complicated than that. Family matters, education matters, economic opportunities also matter, peer groups matter, personal responsibility matters. All of those factors play significant roles in the decision people make. But I also think it's intellectually dishonest to argue that music has no influence whatsoever. We've all seen people adopt the fashion of their favorite artist. We've seen people imitate their slang. We've seen people copy hairstyles, jewelry, dance moves, attitudes, and lifestyles of their favorite musicians. If music can influence how we dress, how we speak, and even what products we buy, Why do we suddenly act as though it has no influence when it comes to values? No, music isn't the sole cause of criminal behavior, but I do believe it can contribute to normalizing certain lifestyles, especially when those lifestyles are consistently portrayed as glamorous, profitable, and largely free of consequences. That's why I think conversations like this matter. This isn't about censoring artists. It's about telling young Miami It's not about telling young Miami what she can or cannot rap about. She has every right to make whatever music she wants. The real question is whether we, as listeners and as a culture, should celebrate every message equally simply because it's entertaining. Because at the end of the day, songs eventually fade, but the culture they help create tends to last much longer. And that's the conversation I think is worth having. So let me know what you think in the comments. Do you believe Spend That is simply harmless entertainment? Or do you think songs like this play a role in shaping culture and influencing the next generation? If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next commentary. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.